Well, thanks, Crispin, for having us here at the Ingleburn Kimberley-Clark plant. Things always haven't been that great with Kimberley-Clark and Woolworths from a supply point of view. Why do you think that is?
Well, that's right, Matt. They haven't been, to be honest. There are probably three broad areas that underpin the background we came from, and they were that we didn't have a direct supply customer contact for Woolworths, so we weren't really able to talk to Woolworths in supply language that readily. Our internal comms and our internal coordination really weren't geared up to Woolworths' expectations, and as a result our case fill rates, while they had improved, really weren't up to the level that Woolworths was expecting in terms of a top rate supplier.
What do you think are some of the key areas that were needed for improvement?
Well, in the end it was case fill rate. That was the ultimate measure. We had to get that right in order to provide a base for the relationship with Woolworths to progress. And we looked at a number of areas in case fill rate to get that right. I mentioned customer supply point of contact. That was critical. So the appointment of Abby Phillips into that role and the appointment of a team underneath her was critical. But it had to be much more than that, and we had to introduce processes and systems which were much more customer focused than they had been in the past. For example, we introduced integrated business planning, which really rearranged the way in which we go to market with our product. It was a fundamental change in the way in which we do business.
Crispin, in the last year, the case fill rates have improved greatly. It's probably one of the best case fill improvements we've seen from any one of our suppliers. Why do you think that is?
We've changed our capabilities, so we run different assets, different types of equipment, different products, and the solutions were unique to each area. For example, in some areas we just lifted our holding stock, but we obviously couldn't do that across the entire SKU range. So in other areas we went after productivity, we lowered our waste, we went after pallet utilisation so we could get more product onto the pallet. And then going right back into the back room of how we escalate matters, get them to a senior decision quickly and respond quickly. I don't think there's an area of the business we didn't touch in order to turn this around for Woolworths.
So with all these changes, how do you think it changed the collaboration piece with Woolworths?
I think it was a fundamental change. It was necessary, it was a painful realisation for us to come to. But it was a fundamental change for the relationship with Woolworths and enabled us to go after all the opportunities that Woolworths brought to the table. In fact, I'm not sure they were in a mood to bring those to the table. That's how bad things were. But now I understand we're a pretty proactive partner with the Woolies team. So that's the change that we see in the supply. We probably started right back in the mills, but clearly that wasn't the end of it because it's a long supply chain. There was a watershed moment with Woolworths about 15 months ago when they made the comment that they weren't sure they could actually continue a promotional program with one of our key brands. And that went right back to the plant that manufactures that. So we had to have a good hard look at how we organise ourselves within the plant in order just to be able to respond faster to the supplier guys that are sending the signals in from Woolworths. And that really speaks to communication and culture and collaboration for us because the culture had to change in our plants. We had to communicate more readily with our supply guys and we had to collaborate more readily with them. So we had to uncover a bit of a siloed approach that we did have in the past because we're plant guys and that's what we do. And understand that what gets on shelf matters. And it resonated surprisingly quickly and strongly with everyone in the plant level. So it was just so fundamental to the mill to understand that as the number one priority. And then going through into supply, I mentioned earlier we set up a team which had a supply background that could deal with Woolworths. And we had to collaborate with them as well. They were the mouthpiece for the customer. Ordinarily, people into supply don't speak that much with the customer, we got sort of first-hand knowledge of what the customer wants and how they feel as a result of how we were treating them. So that again was part of the communication piece, which was essential for us because fundamentally, everyone wants to do well. So we really we needed that communication to understand exactly what the customer wanted. And then going right back forward to the supply contact team that we set up. So OD Phillips heads up a team now who we rely on enormously and trust enormously for really fast communications right back to that manufacturing team to be able to respond really quickly to demands.